Um, so, little background about this book. Basically, this is a book that happened over 5+ years. Started sometime in my mind when COVID hit, around the time that COVID hit. And over 5 years, this book came to its fruition. The original idea between my editor and me was to have 5 essays of 5,000 words each. Unfortunately for all of you, it's become a 400-page book. So, but there's a reason why it kind of grew. And you want the fan switched off? Want the light switched off? Okay. So, the one question I'm always asked, and in fact we were joking about it this afternoon at Vikram's place, is why did you write this book, or how did this book happen? And like I was saying, most of the times, most things that I think we do, the reasoning is post facto. We just jump into something and do it. And then we wonder ourselves, why did we do it? And I think it's no different with this book, except that I think there were certain things happening in me and probably in many people sitting here that caused me to move in the direction of this investigation. It's a fact that there are many mornings I do get up deeply disturbed. At the pit of my stomach, there is this very ugly feeling. There is sometimes helplessness. You don't know what to do. Just the violence that we see on an everyday basis around us, even within us, to be very honest, because I feel we have also emotionally fallen into that trap of anger, of hate, of othering somebody or the other. And it's a kind of a toxic environment that we are all inhabiting and somehow finding moments of happiness, or if you want to call it happiness, and laughing over it. And I think that was one of the biggest reasons this book happened. Because I was grappling, not knowing what to do. Why are we here? Why am I part of this? Was the past really any better? Because sometimes nostalgia is such a dangerous thing. And I know many of us say, 20 years ago, this country was not like this. And I'm not very sure how honest such an assessment can be. So I think this book came from that kind of worrying, grappling and struggling. It also possibly came because of the fact that I'm primarily a musician. And what all art does is, it is about symbolism. You sing a raga, it has no literal meaning. I can't tell you this is what it means. But it carries with it very, very layered symbolisms, very layered abstract meanings that somehow get passed on, whether the musician intends to do so or not. All the musician intends to do is drown in that raga. And in the process of that drowning, something gets passed on. There is some relationship that is built. And that is very important. A relationship is built. And every time it's a new relationship. It's not the old relationship. It may be layered. And so there is something inherent about the world of art, I think, that drew me to the idea of symbols. But there is one fundamental question that I think my editor and I asked each other the moment we thought of this idea is, why should we bother about national symbols? Isn't that itself an indoctrinated state? Isn't that itself something that you're forced to believe in or to adhere to or even subservient to, or even feel a connection? When I see the Indian flag, as I came today from the airport, you see the flag, and yes, there is some feeling. Now, is that really a feeling of relationship? Or is it just something that we're all used to celebrate? We sang Jana Gana Mana now. What did it really mean to all of us here? What did it really mean? Beyond the fact that it was a national anthem. If I told you that it is not a national anthem, it's just a song, would you have a different relationship with the song? It's a fascinating thing to think about. Would the song mean something else if it was not titled as a national anthem that we all had to by heart in our school and often sing the words wrong, of course? Right? So I think these are all the questions that were there in my mind. And I again said, I am presuming these are the questions that were in my mind when I am trying to explain why I wrote this book. And as I traveled through the various symbols, and I chose 5, and I'll tell you why the 5, it was clear to me 2 things. One is that I am not writing this book as a historian. Let me make this very clear. I am writing this book as a citizen of today inhabiting India today. So what you will see in this book and read in this book is constant travel between the present and the past. You will see a lot of history, and then you will see me jumping to a present context and trying to find meaning out of the 2 time zones or 2 time-space situations. And trying to see if there is any connection. If so, has it changed? What do meanings, have meanings been added? Have meanings been twisted? Or do I believe it's a manipulation? So it is a book where I am present as a person who has an opinion. Objectivity, of course, I think is largely a farce. But I am present in this book. And I am speaking as a citizen in this book who's also looking at history. And history was very interesting. The interesting part was 2 symbols a lot of people have written about. One is, of course, the flag. Next is, of course, the anthem. When I came to the motto and to the Indian emblem, information was sparse would be an understatement. I found nothing. And, of course, the first place you go for all these seekings is also the Constituent Assembly debates, where the most robust and most honest and most invigorating conversations have happened as far as our republic is concerned. There is one mention of the emblem in a context. Motto, there's nothing. So how did it even get adopted? Who chose these symbols? Why? What are the mythologies behind them? And have they been carried forward? So all these questions started piling up one after another, and of course there were many rabbit holes I went into. But even with, say, the anthem and the flag, and I will speak about a few interesting nuggets of information, though a lot had been written, some things had been missed. And I think some of them were missed because the people writing them were historians. And in the case of the anthem, and they didn't know music. Maybe I had a little advantage over there. Being a musician, I could lend my ears, literally, to the tunes and wonder what the tunes mean. Do the tunes have meaning? In all this debate about Vande Mataram and Janagana Mana that started now in 2026 January, one discussion that never happened is about the music. And I will speak about that today, briefly at least. And the final emblem chosen was, of course, rather symbol chosen was the preamble. It is not really a symbol, right? Why did I choose it? For 2 reasons. One, many may know that the preamble was the last act of the Constituent Assembly. After the Constitution was written, finally the preamble was adopted. Quite an interesting act by itself, that it was not written first. It was, of course, worked on for many years, but it was adopted as the last act. In many ways, it encapsulates, and what I believe is a beautiful verse, unfortunately relegated to a very, very short part of our civics textbook, but actually quite a beautifully written single line, single page, and encapsulates whatever our Constitution says in the following pages. In a way, it is symbolic of the Constitution. It's not justiciable. You can't go to the court of law and say, the preamble assured me justice, I don't get justice. No. So what role does it play? It has a role of being a symbol of what is there in the pages. And for me, the CAA protest was a real time when it became actually a symbol. I mean, when do you remember people all over the country reading the preamble? No, we can debate whether that was a bit over hagiography and not looking at critically at the Constitution. That's an important academic discussion. But at that moment, I think it's an important act that everybody picked up the preamble. Lawyers picked up the preamble. I thought that was most interesting. And they were all reading it out. So it became literally a symbol of this republic. It became a protest moment. The preamble was a tool of protest against the act of the state. Very rarely have we as citizens separated the state and the nation and protested. Very rarely. It's an academic nuance. For the general public, in fact, I will say party, government, and nation often are blurred as one idea. Nobody knows the difference. But when the CA protest happened, there was a clear recognition that there's a difference between us, the nation, and what the state was doing. And that was a very powerful moment in policy, in politics of India, and the way the public saw polity. So these are the many reasons I chose these symbols. And I'm going to try and go through a few of the elements in each of the chapters and try and give you some insight into it. I must confess it's a little difficult because this book is very granular history. It also has a lot of the larger debates that happened during the making of the Republic and post that. Also, many of those debates are relevant to us today. It also has today's struggle. So in a way, there are many layers to the of some historical insights, some larger questions that have been debated, and of course today. So the book traverses many, many areas of study. It's history, it's about religion, it's about society, it's about the Constituent Assembly, it's about the courts, it's about all of us sitting here today. Maybe I should start with the anthem chapter because we heard the anthem. I had originally planned to start to talk about the flag, but I'll kind of switch it because we heard Jana Gana Mana. Now, the one thing that we forget is irrespective of whether that would have become our national anthem or not, it's one of the most exquisite poems written by Tagore. I think that's something that we should first look at. It's a beautiful song. Many don't know it's a 5-verse song. The actual song has 5 verses. And the first verse was what was adopted as the national anthem. And I always say that we made a big mistake. And the mistake was we didn't include the second verse of that song. And to me, that's the most magical verse. So if I was going to split the song in terms of what it says, Jana Gana Mana Dhinayaka, the first line, the first 3 words are magical. Jana, the collective. Gana, the individual and the collective. Mana, the manas of the Jana and the Gana. Adhina, it's literally we are the people in those 3 words. Even before we thought of the preamble. Jana Gana Mana Dhinayaka Jai He Bharata. And then he describes the geographical extent of the land, which is what we have as anthem. In the second verse, he describes the inhabitants of this land. Hindu, Bodh, Shika, Jaina, Purushuko, Mushalmanu, Kristani. He names the different faiths and he says, all these people of different faiths come together for you. Now, who that you? Is it a gendered you? Is something that Tagore leaves hanging for almost till the penultimate verse. Then he describes the emotional state of the people of the land. He says, the people of the land passing through the rugged terrain, you are always there for them. There is darkness in the land, and there is sadness, there is despair, there is fear. And many ways it also, for me, almost spoke of today in some manner, right? And finally, he resolves it. He resolves it by saying, all this is true, but the sun will rise from behind the eastern hills. And when he says eastern hills, he means the northeastern hills because Tagore spent a lot of time in Shillong. So the song is an incredible song in terms of even its emotive and its descriptive landscape. It starts with stating the collective and the individual and their hearts and minds as being the soul of the nation. Then he describes the extent of it. Then he describes the people in it. Then he describes what is happening to the people in it. Finally, he says, we will all find light. It's a beautifully put together piece of poetry and a song. It is true, Tagore was asked to write a song when George V came in 1911. It's absolutely true. And the reason I need to address this again and again, because the rumor that the Adhinayaka is King George has been going on for too long and doesn't seem to die at all. Okay, bluntly put, it is not King George. Tagore himself said it, and there are enough reasons why it is not. It is true he was asked to sing the song. And in Tagore's own words, he was pretty irritated, pissed if I was going to use a modern way of saying it, that somebody had the gall to come and ask him to write a song on George. Why was George here? The Darbar was happening in Delhi. And he was also coming to Calcutta for a very important reason, that the partition of Bengal was being rescinded in 1911, and the capital was being moved, by the way, to Delhi. Those two things were happening in 1911. This was the first time the monarch was ever coming to India. So therefore, it was an important occasion. So Tagore, in his own words, said this song did not please the person who came and asked me for a song in honor of George. But then Tagore does something that is utterly political. He takes the same song, hands it over the Congress committee, which is having its national conference in Calcutta, same December, and says, use the song. So I do believe it was an intentional act. I don't think it was accidental that he handed over this song there. And on 27 December, Jana Gana Mana is sung for the first time at the Congress session in Calcutta. The reason for this confusion is because of newspaper reports, which it's all in the book, I'm not going to it, where they got a little confused. You must understand in 1911, every one of these meetings began with the praise of the monarch. Okay? And there was a song in praise of King George in Hindustani that was being sung. And then there was this song. People got confused on which song was what, which was Tagore, which was not Tagore. Maybe there was also some conniving operation by the English press to say that Tagore made a song on the George. We don't know. So we can be sure, one, that it is not George. Now, before this song comes into being, there is that other song, Vande Mataram. It is a very interesting song for multiple reasons. Beyond the obvious fight that happens around the song itself is a very unusual creation. The reason being, I don't believe it is one song. That is a fundamental mistake we are making when we look at that song. So historically, this is what happens. Bankim writes two verses of the song. And here I want to say something. The Indian government, in its own wisdom, has said the song has 6 verses. They are wrong. The song has 4 verses. They have split the last 2 lines as a verse. I really want to know who they consulted in doing that. The song has 4 verses. And this is obvious from the structure of the song. It's obvious from Aurobindo's own translation of the song. There are enough references to tell you. And it is also obvious from Government of India's own publication of 1951. It's a 4-verse song. So anyway, 2 verses are written between 1872 and 1875. There's some nice folklore attached to that writing itself. The first 2 verses, Vande Mataram, Sujalam, Shubhalam, Male Jashitalam, Sashya Shamalam, Mataram, Subrat Jyotsna, Pulakita Yamini, Pullakubs Kusumita, Dhrumadala Shobini, Suhasirim, Sumadhura Bhashinim. It's a beautiful verse, you have to say. Even the use of the consonants Sa and Sha has a certain amount of softness that adds to the beauty of it. The second verse, where it's Saptakoti Kanta Kanta. Now, even there, in my opinion, there is a little jump. So what is the first verse? First verse could be about any land, honestly. It need not be about India. I mean, he's just talking about the beauty of the land. It's a landscape description. And then he gets a little bit anthropomorphic, where suddenly it becomes a person, becomes her, the mother. And he talks about how she has the sweet words in her lips, which is not very different from what Tyagaraja has said about Rama, a man with very, very lovely words and similar. Again, that's not a very unique description. It's used about many lords and goddesses. He used the same description, but the use of Sha and Sa is itself what gives its fabulous softness and musically works very well. Now here the trouble begins. I believe the second verse itself is a jump because the meaning jumps. Now from this very abstract generic description, Bankim suddenly becomes very tactile. He's talking about the population. Saptakoti Kanta Kanta. Saptakoti, 70 crore. I don't know how many Bengalis are here, but I will take the risk of saying the imagination of the Bengali somehow limits itself to the Bengali land to some extent, I think. And so the population census of Bengal was the population that Bankim included in his song, okay, which is Saptakoti. And of course, Sarla Devi then changes it also, Trishanka Koti. She changed it, by the way, because by then the nation's population. But imagine this jump. There's something different in poetry when it jumps like this. The moment you change what I would call intentionality, the lyrical nuance changes, the rhyme will change, the use of even consonants changes, because the intention shifts it. So he's talking about suddenly the population. He says they are going to be, he talks about the protest, the anger. Of course, it's a very interesting play there. Is the anger in the people or is anger in the mother is something that is an interesting thing to discuss over there. But kept that aside, it's still okay. I'll still say it's okay. Then what happens is between around 1875 and 1881 is when Bankim writes his famous novel Anandamath. Now, I don't know how many of you have read Anandamath. I've read 2 translations of it, not one. And it is, bluntly put, a very disturbing text. Though some historians have tried explaining it to be as being against more the establishment, in this case Mir Jafar, who was then, it's of course a fictional story based on historical happenings of the late 19th century. But the fact is, it is an Islamophobic novel. I can't say it in a more simpler term. I mean, these Hindu sannyasins are pillaging Muslim villages. They are attacking Muslim villages. They are saying things, there are commentaries in it which are clearly anti-Muslim. There cannot be any debate about this with anybody who read the entire text would say, yeah, these things exist in the text. This song becomes part of that text. Again, when the intention of a song changes, the song will structurally change. What we don't discuss in Vande Mataram is its structure. I actually believe the 4 verses together collapse as a song, structurally. And the reason being, suddenly it has to be operative as a song of these Hindu sannyasins who are attacking these Muslim villages. It is also some kind of an initiation song when these people are going in these horses and attacking, etc. So the tonality of the song changes. The words change. Suddenly Durga really appears as an angry Durga. The moment this happens, the song by itself cannot hold. You may not know there are over 125 tunes to this song. 125. Maybe from the time I started writing the books to now, there is another 25. Maybe it's 150 now. Who knows? And I have heard at least 40. From the oldest ones to the newest ones. Anybody who tried to tune all 4 verses together failed. There's no rhythm hold in it. The rhythm will not hold. You need pulse to hold a song together. It need not be perfect in what I call tala structure. But a pulse, even a pulse shift, there is something that is very natural that happens in a song when there's a pulse shift. And the reversal of pulse is a very important part of the shift. All this is gone in the song. The only part where Bankim suddenly seems to have realized that he has to come to Vande Mataram is in the last line. Last line, he brings back the entire tonality of the first line. Until then, the song is haywire structurally. And I believe that is because the reason he created the song kept shifting. And by the end of it, the song was lost. So one simple reason Vande Mataram cannot be your anthem, it is structurally a song that does not work. Let me tell you a musician's description of it. And of course, it is a song that is muddled in a text that cannot work in a secular nation. So that's why I keep saying these 2 songs, Jana Gana Mana and Vande Mataram, are 2 ideas of India. We have to decide which idea of India we want. Do we want the Vande Mataram idea of India or do we want the Jana Gana Mana idea of India? We have to decide. A little interesting thing about the tunes. For me, the favorite tune is Krishna Rao's tune, which was made in about Master Krishna Rao, as he was known, in the 1930s. It's on YouTube. Please go listen to it. It's a lilting little tune. I think Faiz Khan also wrote a note saying this is one of the best tunes I've heard of Vande Mataram. And there is another one, of course, Omkarnath Thakur's rendition, where he's done something very smart. There is no pulse at all. I think he sings it in Kafi, I'm not sure now, I don't remember now. But he sings it like a free verse. That works. Musically, that works. The rest don't. Now, Tagore makes the claim that he was the first to tune Vande Mataram and render it. Tagore was wrong. He was not the first. He was one of the earliest, yes, accepted. He was not the first. So, one of the early tunes are there in Bankim's biographies. And one of the earliest tunes was I think written by one of his co-magistrates. And there is also this entire saying that he did not like the tune. And finally, The earliest tune we come across is in Malhar. Now, here are two interesting things about it. I found an old notation of it, a notation in Robindra Sangeet notation. So I got it transferred to what a musician can understand, a Hindustani musician can sing, understand, and then got it sung. Though it says Malhar, there is very little Malhar in it. So sometimes when a historian tells you the first tune was in Malhar, was it in Malhar is a question that you have to ask yourself. Because the name may be Malhar, but the tune is not Malhar. Then if the tune is not Malhar, is your sensibility different? Do you hear it differently? Do you feel it differently? And here is another interesting thing. My curiosity was, why Malhar? What was so special about Malhar? And the answer to that is in Anand Math, where one night they sing Vande Mataram before one of their raids, if I remember right. And they sing it, it is said, they sing it in Megh Malhar. Maybe that's why Bankim wanted the first tune in Malhar. Who knows? But moving on from these two songs, and just one more point before I move, is we heard Jana Gana Mana, and I'm going to sing a little bit. Many people may know that the first person to adopt the song was actually Bose in Berlin, when he made Jana Gana Mana the anthem. He adopts it as the anthem, and then when he comes to Southeast Asia, to Singapore, he doesn't feel it works. And the reason I think he feels is Sanskrit is a very Sanskritized Bangla. So it's very like highbrow. It doesn't seem to speak the language of the everyday person. So he gets Abid Hassan and Mumtaz Hussain, his comrades, to, I would say, imagine the song in Hindustani. Shubh sukh chain ki barka barse bharat baag hai jaga. Punjab, Sindh, Gujarat, Maratha, Dravida, Utkal, Banga. Chanchala Sagar, Vindhya, Himala, Neela, Jamuna, Ganga. It's a beautiful song, and I'm going to sing that for you for a specific reason. I've not yet sung. You don't know how I'm going to sound today. I've been speaking for 20 minutes. Don't be very sure it's going to come out nicely. But nevertheless, so I was hunting for an old notation of this song. I was not happy with what I heard online. So Sugata Bose, who is Subhash Chandra Bose's grandson, I called Sugata and said, can you get it to me? He said, I don't have any notation. I must thank all the scholars who helped me and really put their neck out finding material for me. 2 years later, one day I get a mail from him and said, I found a notation. And it's a notation written in Malaya, probably in 1942, 43. And the notation book itself is interesting. In the front cover is a woman who we don't know who she is. She probably was the conductor of the orchestra that was performing the song. And I got a student of mine who could read Western notation. I said, sing it for me and orchestrate it for me and send it to me. You all heard Jana Gana Mana tune, right? To me, Shubha Sukha Chaina is, shall I say, the everyday song of Jana Gana Mana. In the sense, both in terms of the words, there's something very colloquial about it. You know, Hindi snoots may find some words little, doesn't seem to fit. But I think it works. Because it's not meant to be that. It's meant for everybody to sing. And secondly, there's something joyful and light about it. Jana Gana Mana, there's something very, Tagore beardish about it. You know what I mean when I say that, right? But, you get the picture. There's something very big and stately. And, there is this rendition of Vande Mataram by Tagore. I don't know how many of you have heard that. By the way, the tune that all of you sing of Vande Mataram is not the tune approved by Government of India. The tune approved by Government of India is Vande Mataram Sujalam Shubhalam Malayaj Sheetalam Sasya Shamalam Mataram Vande Mataram. Tagore sings it beautifully. Okay? Now, Jana Gana Mana, Shubha Sukha Chaina, you will hear has little elements that's a kind of a deviation from what is the Jana Gana Mana tune. And to me, it adds sparkle, if I was going to use a word, to it. Shubha Sukha Chaina ki बरखा बरसे भारत भाग है जागा शुभ सुख चैन की बरखा बरसे भारत बाग है जागा पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा चंचल सागर विंध्य हिमाला नीला जमुना गंगा नित गुण गाए तुझसे जीवन पाए सब तन पाए आशा सूरज बन कर जग पर चमके भारत नाम सुभागा जय हो जय हो जय हो जय 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 हो isn't that stunningly gorgeous? And when I heard this tune, I still get goosebumps. It's these little Suraj Ban. It's little sparkle. That is sparkle, right? And so what happens to a song when it's translated? It's not a translation, it's a reimagination. It still has love, it still has compassion, it still has that feeling of coming together, but it does something else. So, we underestimate what a tune does, underestimate what an embellishment does, underestimate what linguistic changes do. That's why I believe that we made a big mistake of singing this song only in Jana Gana Mana. I believe in every state, you should have sung it in Telugu, you should have sung it in Tamil, you should have sung it in Kannada. It's very easy to translate with the same tune intact. It's not very hard to do. There are enough poets, I'm sure, in the audience who can do it. We should have. But unfortunately, we thought, at that point, the constant point was, there's maybe partition, there'll be splinter of the country. But imagine if the song was sung in Gujarati, sung in Marathi, it was sung in every one of these languages, and people found their Janagana Mana in their language. We missed another trick. Because there are enough examples of it. The South African anthem is sung in multiple languages. The New Zealand anthem is sung both in Maori and in English. The Sri Lankan anthem was translated to Tamil very fast, very, very early. Of course, during the war and the civil war, there's a lot of controversy around it. It's there in the book, because that song also has a connection to Tagore, by the way. The Sri Lankan anthem is also inspired by Tagore. Tagore is everywhere, whether you like him or not. So, I'm going to leave the anthem behind and just move a little bit to a few other symbols. Let's talk about the flag. So the flag was an interesting thing. In a way, I'm coming to the lion's den when I speak about the flag. You'll know why. It was interesting because one is, how does one approach the flag, right? So we have to remember that our imagination of a flag for this nation, right from the early 20th century, was fundamentally religious. We couldn't imagine this land in any other manner but religious. So one of the earliest people who spoke about the flag was, of course, Venkaya Pingali. He writes a book in 1916 called A National Flag of India, and it's a fascinating book. I got a whole copy of it. He designed 28 flags in it. Actually, the 30, one is the Union Jack. The other one was a flag that he saw that Sister Nivedita had designed. The 28 was his. Very interesting experiment. The man is passionate about it. He's, of course, inspired by because of the partition of Bengal, you had a huge national movement. This whole idea of the National College came up at that time across the country. He works, of course, in the National College here. And then he feels a flag is his agenda. He has to somehow convince the Congress, convince everybody that we need to have a flag. And I can tell you, everybody, Gandhi just came a little later back to India. Gandhi was not really interested in the flag for a very long time. He didn't think it was important. So I looked at every one of the Indian Congress meetings from almost the first meeting up to 1940. I've looked at every one to see what were the images, what were the conversations on flags. So, Pingali's 28 designs are interesting. It's a passion of the man, but the designs are all quite unworkable, because they have many, many elements in it. He has some with symbolism, suddenly Kali, then there is a plow of the farmer. He gives as many options as possible, and to his credit, he asks the reader to send him more options. He says, when we talk about participatory democracy, I think Pingali was engaging in participatory democracy. And everybody come in, let's participate and create a flag. Fascinating. And then again he says, in fact he puts it in paper, he says the only way we Indians can recognize ourselves is through religion. And so he does something very interesting. So he takes the size of the flag, he looks at the population of every religion and allocates space on the flag based on the strength of the population. So the Hindus will have slightly more space, the Muslims have a little less, the Christians a little less, the Parsis a little less, the Buddhists, the Jains. So his flags had like either circles or horizontal lines after lines and an image in between. Another important thing, and in the book, this is how the larger ideas also come into the book, is the Union Jack is always there in every flag. Now here we need more nuance to understand what we meant by Swaraj. Today when we speak about Swaraj, independence, right? No, the Indian understanding of Swaraj went through many iterations. Initially, it was just rights. Then it was equality. Then it was a seat in the table. Then it was on which table do I want a seat? I want it on the Privy Council. So initially, most Indians were only talking about Swaraj in these different meanings. It's important we understand that because we have flatlined that. And in that we think, oh, even in 1910, these people didn't want independence. No, because the meaning of independence is different. Swaraj meant different things. Right? And even when he said we wanted to be a nation, for a long time, it was only a dominion that we were looking for. Let's be very clear. So, Hind Swaraj, written by Gandhi when he is on a boat in 1909, if my memory is right, is a fascinating piece of work. The entire book is in a conversational basis, where Gandhi is speaking, the editor is talking to Gandhi, basically. And he says something quite drastic. And I think if Gandhi had said that today, he would be in jail for sedition. You know what he says? So the editor says to Gandhi that fundamentally saying that no Englishman can be really an Indian or something to that effect. And Gandhi doesn't agree to that. He said no. Then he says, Swaraj, of course, in his argument, is not just an external thing. Swaraj is finding freedom within yourself. And he makes that very clear. And he says something. He says, if every person finds Swaraj within himself, it is irrelevant whether the British remain or go. Imagine saying that today. It's, I think, quite a radical statement to make in 1909. He says it's irrelevant. Because then he says if everybody finds freedom within themselves, the British will leave. There is no argument to be had. And he says this even before these ideas of Swaraj have different positions. In fact, in 1927, in the Congress session in Madras then, Nehru actually puts out a resolution for complete independence. Gandhi is not attending that session. Gandhi is angry as hell. And we have to thank Gandhi for saying everything he thought in everything he wrote, he wrote everything down. He attacks Nehru, he attacks the Congress, and he almost calls it immature, unthought, not thought out, etc. In this book, I have published Nehru's response to Gandhi. Please read that. Because this idea that these people didn't disagree, or they were chamchas of each other, all that is nonsensical. Nehru writes what I would consider one of the sharpest critiques of Gandhi you could get. He tears him to pieces, literally. It goes after him, and he goes to the point of saying, nowadays the things that you was writing, I stopped reading. I prefer your actions than all the stuff you speak and write. Right? So there is this back and forth, and that's when Nehru and Bose, everybody tell the previous generation, it's almost a generational shift, like now we want freedom in the truest sense. The British have to go. So when I came to the flag, I did enter it through the colors and through religion. But I didn't use religion as a peg to talk about the separation of the communities, but to look at what are the elements in each of those practices that in a way talk to our governing fundamental principles of ethical democracies and our republic and our Constituent Assembly debates and of course our Constitution. And so the green, for example, just quickly to give you green is associated with the color of Islam. So my first question is, how long was it associated with Islam? And the fascinating thing is the initial colors of all Islamic flags were not green, they were black. They were not green, they were initially black. And the green in Islam is actually quite a beautiful aspect of Islam, where it is about the idea, it is actually an environmental idea. It's about the green, it's about nature, it's about protection of nature. It's about when they go to heaven, the Jannat. It's about being green, it's about the green. The green symbolizes the larger natural world around and taking care of the larger natural world. There are enough things in the Quran and even the Hadiths where consumption is spoken about, where you don't consume more than you need. You don't kill more than you need. In fact, it is against the practice. And I think there is, one of the hadiths there is, I forgot whose hadith it was, where it is about, even if you are dying at the moment of death, if there is something you can give back to nature, you do that and then die. You don't take away from nature. So I used the faiths as a conversation for values that I believe that today we should be discussing. Now, in these colors, there were two things I didn't figure. One is, why do we call the flag a Tiranga? Isn't it a Chaturanga? But we call it a Tiranga. What happened to the blue? Why is it that it never even, if we see three stripes, we don't even miss the chakra in between, do we? We don't. And so my question, okay, blue, okay, but where did this blue come from? There are many. So I did some investigation on this, and in an unusual situation, I brought Gandhi and Ambedkar together. It's a bit of imagination, of course, not imagination, inference will be a better word. And when does blue become part of our freedom movement or part of anything that is struggle? Today, blue is Dalit, is about Dalit assertion. It's about the Dalit parties, and that blue is, that indigo blue is very evidently that. But if you think of it, the indigo blue is a very important part even for Gandhi. Gandhi's first ever satyagraha was in Champaran against the indigo planters. If there was no indigo blue, you may not have had a Gandhi. Right? And then if you go a little behind that, the first big revolt against the British in Bengal was an indigo revolt of the late 19th century, which of course fizzled out within a year or so. It didn't grow into a larger anti-colonial war. So indigo itself has a history of being part of the peasant culture, part of what I would call the Dalit movements, and then it disappears, and then Ambedkar had to literally find it back. Now, my question was, why blue? Why did Ambedkar choose blue? So I kept hunting and hunting and hunting and trying to figure out why blue. And then in one of Ambedkar's essays, I picked up something which I thought may have been the reasons. So I think this was the essay which is about the riddles of Hinduism, of Ambedkar. And where he talks about where did the caste come from, right? And the origins of the caste system. He quotes from the Mahabharata, from the Harivamsha, from many places. And interestingly, in many of these texts, colors are associated with the jati, or with a varna, to be more accurate. Not jati, but varna. And inevitably, the color associated with the Shudra varna is black or blue. And black and blue, as you know, is interchangeable. You can interchange the colors. So I wonder whether one of the reasons why Ambedkar chose the blue as a blue of the color of resistance and of his party was because he saw this in this text. Quite possibly, that's why he picked it up from. And you also find that this association of color, darker color with people on the lower sections of societal hierarchy across the medieval worlds, across the world, and there's enough been written about it, how in different cultures, even European cultures, the white is more associated with the princely, and as you get darker and darker and darker, it is the peasant class. So this color association with societal class or societal allocation, and the darker meaning one lower, is not necessarily unique of, say, the subcontinent, but something that has universally happened across the world. The other color, of course, saffron or kesari or bhagwa, as I think it was Krishna who called it Bhagwa, Nehru called it Kesari. And, we so think, it is so sad that I believe that today's saffron has become a color of anger. When I see that Hanuman in those bikes, it's terrorizing. It is terrorizing. Or that thing hanging. It is not the Hanuman that I was introduced to by my mother. Or in the chants I was told whenever I was scared at night of darkness, Buddhir balam yasho dhairyam nirbhayatvam. My mother used to say, utter that and all your fears would go. Yeah? Hanuman was not this angry person who seems to be wanting to kill everybody. That's the saffron. It is so sad that today, when we wear saffron, we are ourselves looking at ourselves a minute. Isn't it so sad? It's a color of beauty. It is something anybody should embrace. It can't be. Now here is this interesting part. Saffron may not have been originally in Hindu color at all. Bhagwa is the word, okay? Now, most likely that the word Bhagwa for the color saffron came from who wore that color. The earliest points where you find the mention of the saffron is in Buddhist monks. The Buddhist monks wore the color. And its association goes first with the Bhagwo. The Bhagwo originally meant the Buddha. Okay? Then, slowly what happens, it becomes a generic reference to anybody who is a Buddhist monk. They're all Bhagavos. Then all the monks wore saffron. So all the Bhagavos became synonymous to the color of saffron. And that is how the word Bhagavo, which actually means Bhagavan also, referring to the Buddha, translates to meaning the saffron coming from the Buddhist tradition and not necessarily coming from what we could generally call the Hindu tradition. Because there were many colors associated with different kinds of renunciates for a very long time. Also, there is this fabulous verse in the Gahasatyasai in the 1st century by the Satavahana king, where I just love this verse. It's about the Palasha flowers. And the verse is gorgeous. He basically says in that verse, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, he says, look at the flower, keep it on the floor and look at it. And it looked like a Buddhist monk in saffron on his head praying to the Buddha. How many of you have seen the Palasha flowers? And you've seen that turn of it. It really looks like a monk who is paying obeisance to the Buddha. And so there are enough reference in Buddhist texts also that will tell you that the saffron probably came from that. The toughest color to handle before I move on was, of course, white. What does one do with white, with all the problems that white has? And the way I interpreted white is to look at it from the eyes of the RTI, Right to Information Act, and say, white is a symbolism of honesty and truth. White is a way of saying we want honesty in the way we govern ourselves and the way we live. And if that's the white we seek in the flag, then that's the white we can look at. Because in Christianity, white, of course, is purity, etc. And there are enough warnings also about it, but it's basically that. And that comes with layers of racial problems and racial issues that you need to raise with the white and the black. But if you think of this color as more symbolizing something that is honest and has integrity, then I think the white has meaning too for every one of us seated here. The fascinating thing about both the national anthem and the national flag is at the same time there were many national flags and many anthems. So you could have the Congress meeting in Dharwad, which will say national song. It will be some Kannada song. You will have a meeting, say, in Lucknow. There will be another national song, another song, probably in Hindustani or in Urdu. So even the idea of what represented this land was flexible with multiple interpretations. There were about 6 flags or 4 or 5 flags that were called national flags at the same time. I think it's important to think about. Yes, you can come to the argument saying when we become one, should we have one? We will actually argue that. We will do that. But even the idea that you could coexist with different imaginations of symbols at the same time, imagine some way of living together despite our differences, is something profoundly beautiful for us to embrace today. and to think of. And I think in many ways we did capture a lot of that in the fundamental rights that we gave ourselves in the Constitution of India. And it was there even in our symbols. Nobody obsessed over one. In fact, the problem that happened between the Muslim League and the Congress in the 30s was about three things. One was language, because they thought that Hindi is going to take over Urdu. Two was national anthem, thinking Vande Mataram is going to be made the anthem. Third was the Congress flag will become the national flag, right? These three arguments. But the fact is, parallel imaginations of India coexisted. Parallel ideas of how you saw it in color, in design, in music, in melody, coexisted. In the South, you had Subramanya Bharati creating enough songs that were different imaginations of it. In Andhra Pradesh, in Telugu land, you had other imaginations. In Kannada land, you had different imaginations. And they all could contest. They all could coexist at the same time, right? The one thing about the flag, and that'll give me a segue into the emblem, is, of course, the chakra in between. The one person, before that I want to tell you one thing. Venkaya Pingali did not design the Congress flag. I'm sorry. I know that's what we all believe, but I do not believe he designed it. He was the first originator of the idea of a flag, without doubt. He was the only person who thought of it when very few people were thinking of it. Yes. He did help Gandhi get the flag painted in Bazwada. Between the 30th of March or the 1st of April. That's also true. But it's unlikely that was his design, because every one of his designs that I have seen was totally different in conception than what was finally brought in. And I don't see an aesthetic connection of the individual in the two. Even in the designs that he made, he did not paint them. Somebody else painted them for him. He's recorded all this himself. And Gandhi himself, interestingly, says it at least 3 or 4 times in his life. I invented the flag. Gandhi says it. I created the flag. He says it. When I created the flag, he says it. He himself says it more than once. Now, Gandhi, it is only around 1929 when Gandhi changes the meaning of the flag from religion to ideas of sacrifice, peace, everything. In fact, he makes a comment saying that the Congress people don't like this interpretation anymore. I think I have to change my interpretation of what the flag means. So even Gandhi held on to religious partitions in the flag for a very long time. The chakra in the center was something Gandhi disliked. When the flag was announced, Gandhi is upset that his charkha has been removed from the flag. And he's very upset. And only reason he reconciles himself, he says, okay, it's after all Ashoka's chakra, and he symbolizes ahimsa, and therefore he accepts it. So Gandhi was not happy that his charkha went away, but I think it was right his charkha went away, and a chakra came. And I think the move was a very, very important move of moving forward that was required. Even about his charkha, I don't know how many of you know about the famous Tagore-Gandhi debates for 5 years. The only man who was against the entire charkha movement in the nation was Tagore. And I mean, the word we use, call him out, right? Tagore called him out. Literally called him out again and again and again. And those debates are worth reading multiple times. Because they are intense, they are honest, but they give you incredible perspective on how these two people thought. And Tagore's arguments are, I must say I'm a bit on Tagore's side on the arguments on this one, are very, very important. He asks what a repetitive act does to a person. He says, you tell everybody has to do a charkha. He understands the point. Yes, we want labor to be something everybody participates in. It diminishes the idea of classes between people. You need to make your own clothes. He understands all that. But he says, a repetitive act. You're telling children in colleges and schools to not go to college and school and spin a charkha. He says, you're making them machines. He says something profound. He says creativity, and I'm paraphrasing, of course. His creativity and individual thought itself is resistance. That's such an important point. He says if you kill that, you kill resistance, because you kill the imagination of the individual. And then he calls it a cult. He calls this whole thing a cult. He calls it out as a cult. He says people just follow you blindly. You may understand the reasons why you do this. You think everybody doing this really understands the meaning. They're doing it because you're doing it. You're larger than life. He's almost telling Gandhi, you're not realizing the very thing that you are saying people should have, you're destroying because of this. And then he says, and Tagore in a way was an internationalist. He thought of the idea of fraternity not as a national thing, but something that went beyond borders. And there, I think Gandhi made the point that you can't be hugging and kissing the white man when he's not treating you equally. He says, there's no point in having this discussion. But Tagore's point is, no, we have to think of it in a larger. So, and of course, Tagore's idea of nation, if you read Tagore carefully, it's also something that kept changing. He then went to the idea of, I think, the nation was something like Samaj, is what he called it, different Samaj. But rather than a Western connotation of a state and nation, he didn't believe in that. But the most interesting part for me as an artist in this entire argument was what Gandhi thought of art and what Tagore thought of art. Gandhi is very kind of sarcastic, even quite nasty when he says the poet can have the freedom to think of all these beautiful ideas, when people don't have food and stuff on their plate. It's really like below the belt. Today you would call it below the belt. He really hits him below the belt. But that's a very interesting thing. So what does a poet do when there is war? That's what I was thinking. Poet writes poetry. That's what the poet does. Is that a useless act during war? Should the poet also take a gun and go and fight? No. Why, for example, in the olden days, kings always took poets with them? Of course, to sing their praise. Apart from that, right? Apart from that, they believed in a mystical power of the words, actually. They believed that the God's words. But take the mystical power, even if you don't believe in it. There is the power of the word. There is the power of imagination. So the poet has a role. He says, when the house is burning, will there be poetry? Yes, there will be poetry. In fact, only when there is poetry when the house is burning will society live. Otherwise, society will die. And Tagore makes this point. See, for Gandhi, songs and all these things were tools. They were tools fundamentally that he used for his various way of building politics and societal politics, which is fine. But he didn't see them as just art objects, as a function of society, which Tagore saw. But I think both of them failed in one thing. There were two people talking about the burning of clothes. Of course, Tagore says, who are you to ask a poor person to burn foreign clothes when they have no clothes to wear? But the irony is that both these individuals always had clothes. They have never experienced being naked. And there is this irony in this entire debate of 5 years between these two incredible minds, that both of them have never been in a situation where they had to seek clothes to protect themselves, right? So, the chakra, Ashoka. When many of these things are also debated, by the way, in the Constituent Assembly. Vande Mataram comes up many times, and of course, the flag tells me when I can stop. I can just go on and on. So you better tell me stop, I'll stop. Ram. Okay. So, Ashoka is one of the most important, other than Tagore, if there's one other individual who's influenced our entire imagination, is Ashoka. I have a historian friend, he's a Dravidian historian, who told me, unfortunately, too much of India's symbolic imagination is Bangla imagination. I have to kind of agree with him. The influence of the Bengalis has been very, very immense in most of the imaginations that we have had, politically or in terms of even aesthetics. But Ashoka is another very important figure. And unfortunately, there's one thing that we have started doing in the last 10, 15 years, is whether it's Ashoka, whether it's, of course, Nehru, we have started not critically engaging with them, but we are completely deriding their very presence in the various intellectual and physical and political acts that they participated in, reducing them to being people of villains of some sort. And that needs to stop, I feel. Disagree with Nehru? Of course. But if you read any of the old material, primary sources, the one thing that comes out, whether it's Ambedkar, Nehru, Gandhi, Bose, or any of them, is the sheer integrity, honesty, and intention with which they worked. And I think it is completely unfair that today it is okay to question that when there is no basis to question that. Do you disagree with some of them? Of course, please do. I do. I disagree with Gandhi on many things. But the man really gave his heart and soul for an idea. And that cannot be, that is unquestionable. Ambedkar, everything. And they fought each other, they disagreed with each other, they probably didn't like each other, but that didn't matter. Because what mattered is their ideas. What mattered is what they were trying to share. And I think that's all should matter to us, and not anything else. Ashoka is a similar character. Of late, Ashoka is now also dissed as being this fraud. He really did not convert to Buddhism after Kalinga, all these stories, okay? And you have people who call themselves historians who've been writing all kinds of things about these figures. Now, Ashoka is I've worked some bit with Ashoka because I worked with his edicts. I've been working with the Ashoka edicts for around 5-6 years and singing them. And so I worked with his material for some time. And I'll straight plunge into the most important material in his entire edict collection. The major edicts of 14 is, of course, the Kalinga mention. And that's what everybody knows. When Ashoka basically says, I conquered Kalinga, killed more than 1 million people, 150,000 of them were maimed, and then he's almost contrite. He asks the question, did Ashoka really win Kalinga? Right? I think there's something incredible about that part of that edict. Imagine the time, 200 years before the Common Era, what were other kings saying about themselves in public? They were saying, I conquered this land, I became bigger and bigger and bigger, I donated so much, so much and so much. This is all they said. And here you have a man coming in, almost giving you a public confession. Had a man who's then conceptualizing an idea of society based on compassion. And he's saying, I'm going to live, I have changed. Of course, he's a little egotistical about himself. He's a monarch. Give me a break. He's still powerful. He's saying, you know, I'm a monarch. Before me, interestingly, Ashoka has also had some amount of loss of memory. I mean, purposely loss of memory. He never talks about his father. Never talks about his grandfather. Chandragupta Maurya is not anywhere in Ashoka's mentions. It's almost saying the past was horrible. The present is different, and I have created this present. But he says, my kitchen is different. I practice, my dhamma is different. I want this dhamma to be practiced in society. And, you know, today we have this Endangered Species Act. I think it came up in the 70s, if my memory is right. Ashoka lists 25 species that are endangered in his edict. Now, how incredible is that? He lists them. He says these, some of them are amphibians, some of them are mammals, cannot be killed for food or for any reason. They are protected species. When we speak about environmentalism, when we speak of right to life today, in which we have imbued our protection of the environment, you have Ashoka saying this ages ago. These are things that are admirable about that man. Have you seen any politician say sorry? A monarch never needs to say sorry, but this man is actually saying sorry. It is quite profoundly beautiful. But there is also the other side of Ashoka, which is interesting for us as human beings. Now, I ended that edict with that line where he talked about Kalinga, but the edict doesn't end there. The edict continues. It continues to Ashoka saying, giving a warning to what he calls the forest dwellers or the forest people. Who are the forest people? Most likely the Adivasis. Why were they troublesome for Ashoka? Most likely because resource came from the forest, especially for war. Elephants, wood, everything came. And there was some tension over there. They were probably not allowing him to come and get the animals or something. So he warns them. The next line after saying, I'm contrite and I'm sad about Kalinga, Ashoka's another face suddenly comes up. And he says, don't think because I have embraced ahimsa, I don't have all this violence at my disposal. What does this say? This states the reality of power and vulnerability. About how these two things coexist in anybody, not just Ashoka and you and me. We do that on an everyday basis. We are kind to the same person. 2 hours later, if the same person does something that does not seem to work and we are in a position of power, our tonality changes. So we have to see Ashoka as a complex personality, but somebody who is far beyond his times, who's thinking beyond his times. And Ashoka plants this beautiful pillar on the spot where Gautama Buddha gives his first sermon in Sarnath. Ipsita Tapani. That's where his first sermon is given, and that's where you have your Ashoka pillar coming from. Now, that sermon itself is an incredible sermon. I don't know how many of you have read Ashoka's first sermon. Please do read it. Of course, other than the fact that it gives you the fundamental aspects of Buddhism, it's a beautiful sermon. Now, that is picked up as our emblem. It is reimagined. And I do believe Nehru in some way did reimagine himself as being some kind of a democratic modern Ashoka in some way. He saw himself as internationalist. He also, I think, was trying to find a separation from the partition past. Finding something that could hold on to. Are we sure he chose the Ashoka thing? We don't know. There's a lot of confusion there, and I've made some suggestions in my book on who are the possible candidates of those who chose the emblem. But nevertheless, you have this beautiful pillar, and I want to say one thing about the first discourse or the first sermon of Buddha, which I find most fascinating, is, of course, you have the 4 lions. The lions here symbolize the Sankhya Muni. The lions symbolize compassion, compassionate ruling, justice, and Dhamma. They are not angry lions like the one we see in our new parliament building right now. Right? They are not the same lions. They are not. These lions are different. Let's agree. But if that's the lion we want today, we are saying something. We say we want a lion that is muscular and that is going to constantly tell the world that we are the best. Maybe that's the lion we want today. And we have to ask ourselves, is that the line we want? It is very sad that self-reliance and confidence has been conflated with arrogance. They are two different ideas. To be confident and to be yourself does not mean you need to tell the other person he's an idiot or a stupid fool. It's not required. And I think somewhere we have mixed that up. Similarly, to be quiet does not mean to be weak. They're not the same things. To shout does not mean you're strong. And I think we have made all these mistakes in today's polity. In that first sermon, the 5 people who are listening to Buddha in that sermon are also his cohorts. They were the ones who he was practicing and experimenting with. Then he goes away, he's enlightened, and enlightened Buddha arrives. And he is giving his first sermon to that cohort. What is one of the translations of it I really enjoyed, and I've included in the book, is, yes, okay, Buddha is enlightened. So what? One individual is enlightened. Does that make a difference to the world? It doesn't make a difference to the world, does it? Doesn't, right? Because during the sermon, you also hear a commentary of the different worlds, the devas and everybody listening to this new wisdom that is born from this world teacher that is spreading into these ethereal worlds. Now, what is happening in the real world? His 5 cohorts who are sitting. There's one person, Kodanna, who's sitting in front of him, and the narrator says, already tells you that he is getting enlightened, listening to Buddha's sermon. So you almost know that by the end of it, he's going to be enlightened. And of course, he's enlightened. He's the first person enlightened by Buddha's words. There's something very beautiful about the last part in one of the translations saying, the Dhamma Chakra does not roll or move the moment Buddha is enlightened. It only moves when the enlightenment or the knowledge of the enlightenment is shared with somebody. And once the sharing happens, only after then does the Dhamma Chakra move. And I think this is such a beautiful way to think of Dhamma itself. It doesn't make a difference to us if Buddha was enlightened. It makes a difference when that enlightenment is shared and abandoned, received in abandon by that person sitting in front, in this case. And that's how enlightenment happens. Now, whether it is a flag, whether it's the anthem, the greatest struggle for government of India was passing this information to the public. You won't believe that almost for 10 years after these choices were made, people were still not sure what the anthem was. I'm not joking. People were not sure. There were questions even in the parliament saying, when do we sing Vande Mataram? When do we sing Jana Gana Mana? Because what happened is, by the way, there is no official categorization of national song. This also has to be on record. There is no official categorization of Vande Mataram as national song. It was mentioned by Nehru in the Constituent Assembly debates legislature. So the Constituent Assembly had 2 parts. One was making the constitution. It also played the role of a legislature. In one of the legislature discussions, Nehru makes this comment saying, it'll be treated as a national song. So it is no official status. So for 10 years, people did not know what to sing. And I'm saying even now in Tamil Nadu, if you go to any public school and ask them Janagana Mana, they don't get the words because Tamil is such a different language. Half the words will get it wrong. Because the children cannot get those Sanskritized words. The same thing with even the emblem. Even 25 years after a republic, they were trying to say, take those crown emblems out. We need to put our emblem in. So even the process of sharing this symbolic change with the people took a long time. And there's something very interesting what the government of India puts out in one of its circulars. Says, make the transition without disturbing anything. I thought that was interesting. They didn't want conflict on the basis of that. They said, quietly make all the changes. Make sure the symbol changes. And then we choose Satyameva Jayate as our motto. Who chose this motto? Was my first question. Actually, nobody knows. Nobody knows. There is no, I've seen entire records in from the government National Archives. Nobody knows who chose it. And it's a fascinating choice. Those who don't know, Satyameva Jayate Nandratam is a line from the Mundaka Upanishad. And the Mundaka Upanishad is meant for basically renunciates. It's a Upanishad specifically for monks. And in that, this line, Satyameva Jayate Nandratam comes in. We chose Satyameva Jayate as our motto. Now, if you look at the mottos of various countries, some of them talk about what has happened in their past, resilience, freedom, struggle, stuff like that. Our motto is one abstract idea. Are we the first? No. 3 kingdoms in India already had it even before we did, by the way. They had chosen it as their motto. Czechoslovakia also had truth prevails or truth triumphs as their motto. So, but it is still a very unusual choice. You could say Gandhi was probably inspired from Gandhi, could say it. Now there is a little two interesting things, which is true of all of these symbols, but I'm bringing it here because it's more relevant to the conversation, is the engagement of the public in many of these choices. You know, we talk about public participating in democracy. It is stunning to see the number of letters that were sent to the government of India when these choices were made, or the arguments made by common people on what should be chosen as the anthem, what should be chosen as the motto. And the motto is the most interesting. So, Nehru sends out a circular, Home Ministry sends out a circular saying Satyameva Jayate is the motto. Within 15 days, flurry of letters are sent to the Prime Minister and the President and everybody saying the Sanskrit is wrong. Satyameva Jayate is wrong. Without going to the technicalities, I'll tell you why they believe it was. Satyameva Jayati is what it should be. Panic. Lightning telegrams sent to every department. Stop the announcement immediately. And these are common people writing. And I must say, most letters came from south of the Vindhyas. I think we are really jobless people. So, most of the Sanskrit complaints came from either Andhra, Kerala, Karnataka, or what we call Tamil Nadu, all these states. This is where most letters, all Sanskrit scholars from every place. And one of the Telugu kings or the local king also wrote a supportive letter for a complaint letter saying, I agree with his letter. So I know, and these letters are fascinating. They're all there, are fascinating. And remember, many of these letters were responded to. Huh? I'm just saying, just think of that. Do we actually live like that as citizens today? You may think, what is a big deal in one motto? Who cares? But it mattered. It mattered what we say of ourselves, how we see ourselves. That's why the Constituent Assembly debates are so fascinating, because it's about how you wanted to see yourself. So why was Satyameva Jayate wrong? Now here is, in general, you translate Satyameva Jayate as truth triumphs, truth prevails. You can alternate the word, right? Now the problem is in a Sanskrit grammar point of something known as a Parasmai Pada and Atmane Pada. Now the Atmane Pada means that the action, that is the effect of an action, goes to the individual himself. Parasmai Pada means that the effect of the action goes to the other person, right? Now the line is actually Satyameva Jayate Nandratam, right? Now the question is, who is the subject in this line? If the subject is Satyam, then it cannot be Satyameva Jayate. It has to be Satyameva Jayati. Okay, and this is the point. But some scholars say this is from the Upanishads, you can't apply Sanskrit grammar rules to Upanishads. That's one of the reasons given. But Patrick Olivier and few of the Sanskrit scholars actually give a beautiful explanation on why it is right to have it as Satyameva Jayate. And I'd like to offer that to you. Now, think of it. Can truth triumph? Truth itself is an abstract idea. How can truth triumph? Who triumphs? The person who speaks the truth only triumphs. Right? So if you shift the subject from truth to the person in the Mundaka Upanishad, the Rishi, then Satyameva Jayate makes complete sense. So truth does not triumph. Those who speak the truth, those who live by the truth, they triumph. And I think that way it's a far more profound motto for us as a country than saying truth triumphs. It triumphs only if we speak and embrace the truth. Truth by itself can do nothing. But this is a debate, imagine. This is a debate. This is argued. This is fought over. So there's a lot more, of course. And finally, the preamble. And the preamble, I only focus on one aspect, which is a fraternity clause, which I think is the most captivating clause in our preamble. And in that, the dignity of the individual placed before the unity and integrity of the nation. In fact, there's an argument in the Constituent Assembly on whether it should be unity, integrity came in later, unity of the nation, and then the dignity of the individuals. He said, no, the dignity of the individual is important. And in many ways, whether it's the privacy case, whether it's the Aadhaar case, whether it is the case of decriminalizing queer sexual relationships, in all these things, the dignity of the individual is what we captured completely. And dignity is privacy. And in many ways, we have to capture that, get that back in our society today. And which is why I think the fraternity clause was the most important clause. And it is believed that that clause did not exist in any of the older drafts of the preamble. And some scholars believe it was Ambedkar who actually brought fraternity back into the preamble. It may not have been there. And fraternity itself, in fact, Ambedkar often uses the word Maitri instead of fraternity, which is a far more beautiful word, because it is not anthropocentric also. Maitri is for any living being. Feeling of love and compassion and coexistence of any living being. And so he expands that constitutionally to a larger spectrum than then saying it's only fraternity among human beings. And even there, I mean, there are some things that are unexplainable. I've been critical of certain things in the Constitution, also in the book, and there's one thing that I still can't reconcile. And that is because we saw Stan Swami die. We saw a person who was not given a straw. We still have Umar Khalid in jail. We still have so many other people in jail. We have people on bail who should not be even arrested in the first place. And that takes us to, of course, what is known as preventive detention. So as we are against UAPA, POTA, MISA, all the different versions, or APSA, we are not going to the source of the problem. The source of the problem is a clause in our fundamental rights, which allows preventive detention, which was put in even during the Constituent Assembly. And shockingly, and in my surprise, Ambedkar also supported the clause. It had no place, in my opinion, in our fundamental rights. Because that is what allows for laws to be made by Parliament that allows for the preventive detention of people, whether it's through UAP or any other act. If of course, the counter-argument, what do you do with terrorism is what's going to come. But I think even if we need something very sharp and something very specific and particular. Because you know what the conviction rate of UAPA cases in this country is? It's 2.6 or 2.8% of the cases that get convicted on UAPA. So even when we are looking at aspects of the Constituent Assembly and at our Constitution, we have to think critically. So this engagement with these symbols, this engagement with the Constitution through the symbols for me is about engaging about everyday India, about how we feel, how we think. And more than anything, it also was a way for me to say maybe there is hope. Maybe there's a way we can reimagine. And we have to start in our little small circles, not the big ideas of changing the world. Our homes, our family, our WhatsApp groups, they all matter. And for that, we have to go to the past, not get stuck by it, but be inspired by it. To critically think of it again, to reevaluate it, to reimagine it, and to find for ourselves new meanings and not fall in traps of manipulations and all the Machiavellian tricks that are being played on us on an everyday basis. In manners in which our power is reduced, manners in which we have started saying, what is wrong? We live in a country now where it is okay to hit a Dalit and put a video of that on social media. We live in a country where it is fine to attack a Muslim because they are carrying meat. These are not places happening in singular, isolated locations. They are happening across the country. We live in a country where places of worship are constantly being attacked and made places of conflict, when local people are quite happy embracing both faiths. I come from Tamil Nadu, where the same thing is being played. We have a temple, people go to the temple. You have a dargah, people go to the dargah. People go to the dargah and the temple and the dargah. They lived like this for a long time. When you make that a problem, when you have a purpose to create a rift, then we need to go back and seek values, ideas, thoughts, colors, designs, phrases from the past. Not to say the past was great, but to find for ourselves, find ourselves in the present mess that we find ourselves.
Thank you.
Why did stalwarts like freedom fighters, Nehru and his team, Rajendra Prasad and others, who championed the cause of coexistence, secularism, humanism, socialism, chose Vande Mataram as a national song? And just now you have said that it was against Muslims.
A national song. It is unofficially, and there is no legal status as national song. We have one national anthem, and that is Jana Gana Mana. Okay, I want to clarify that. See, Vande Mataram went through many phases. See, Vande Mataram, despite its history, it also played a role during the Bengal partition. So it also had a role, a political role that it played between 1905 and 1911. So, and it inspired many people. Whether, we also have to see things beyond black and white. So it also played a role of capturing some imagination of people for fighting against the colonial, right? So there was always this tension between its intention in the book, its creation by Bankim, its political role during the freedom struggle, and there was this tension there. So it was not so easy to give up that song and say no. But Nehru does something Nehru is very intelligently. He's being forced. There is pressure on him to choose Vande Mataram, by the way. But he constantly is negotiating that. He makes all kinds of arguments. Some arguments that I don't agree with also. He says, for example, Vande Mataram will not work for orchestration or something like that. In my book, I criticize him for it. So even in my book, as much as I critical of Vande Mataram, I say, don't tell me that Vande Mataram can't be orchestrated, that's why Jana Gana Mana should be used. That's a bad argument to make. But Nehru makes that argument. So he's trying to find a way to kind of not make it an issue, but yet make Jana Gana Mana the anthem. Not just him, everybody else who believed India is secular. And in that, they didn't want to throw the song, because even Gandhi was very emotional about that song. He talked about how, I think it was Gokhale who probably introduced him to the song. He's very emotional about it. So there are emotional connections that he doesn't, and this partition has just happened. Think of all that is going on. There is violence. So you are trying to balance a lot of things. Could they have done it better? In retrospect, we can come up with ideas. But at that moment, I think there are some choices that are being made. But I think you should appreciate the fact that they didn't fall for Jana Gana Mana as the anthem. And they said, no, didn't fall for, Vande Mataram as the anthem. And they said, no, we will only go with Jana Gana Mana. And I think that itself is a signifier on what they believed is a secular nation and should be a secular nation. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Divakar here. Thank you so much for the enlightening session. Very informative. You mentioned about Tagore and Gandhi's debates. They had a conflict and difference of opinion on the nationalism. And who do you see like now, with coming to the current context, who is right in that?
It's very difficult to say. I think they come from very different ways of thinking. I think they both played a role. See, Gandhi is an activist. Tagore is not an activist, if you put it that way. So the way they're seeing a problem is very different. Many of the arguments that Tagore made for me I find it, emotionally, I'm more attached to those arguments. But there are many things that Gandhi is doing because he's actually working on the ground. Just remember, Gandhi is working on the ground. He's on the streets. He's going from gully to gully. You know, you can, on caste, I disagree with Gandhi on many things, but yet you recognize the man is on the ground. And therefore, I think both those arguments are required. This is what I would say. We can't disregard a Gandhi, Ambedkar, Tagore and make choices. We need an Ambedkar, we need a Gandhi, and we need a Tagore. We need the debate to be alive today. I want you and I to have that debate today. Not to say, I have chosen this side of the debate. That means you have not thought. I think we need to live in those little gaps where answers are not clear. Maybe that's the artist in me who's saying that in some ways, because artists always live only in those gaps. We can't choose sides. If you choose side, music is lost. So maybe that's why I prefer to live in the little edge.
You've done with our symbols. I'm sure you've come across a lot in terms of our currency and our notes and our coins as well. One thing that has really piqued my curiosity over the years is we've got so many monuments on our notes, but in terms of personalities, there's only Gandhi on our notes. We don't have a dearth of heroes. Then why is it that only Gandhi is on our notes, but not Ambedkar or anybody else?
Things happened post my time of research, but I think the reason why Gandhi is there is the hope that at least seeing Gandhi's face, you will speak the truth.
After him.
I know it sounds crazily utopian and none of us, I mean, look at us. We are asking this question. You use the same note for a bribe or a policeman, no? So what difference does it make to you whether Gandhi is on there or Ambedkar? As if you're going to do anything different if Ambedkar is on there. Maybe you're saving all of them at least from the ignominy. Maybe. So while I understand why you should have more, you're most welcome to put many more monuments and many more faces in it. But let's ask the more deeper question. The deeper question is the reason we have Gandhi is there, whether you liked what he said or disliked what he said what he felt. That's truth. Do we treat that 500 rupee note as the truth? So I think maybe that should be what we should be more worried about than whose face is on it. To me, that's irrelevant.
When the country is rocking with a lot of unemployment, so many other problems related to casteism and all these things, there is a full session given for Vande Mataram discussion in the parliament by present government. Can you comment on that, please?
I mean, I didn't give the session for sure. I mean, I agree with you. I completely agree with you. It was, I mean, the argument was it's 150th year of the Vande Mataram being written. That is the argument being made. But I don't believe that it should have been priority at all at this point of time. I don't think so at all. And it was just a political move to again bring up this whole, again, two imaginations of India. That's what they're going to. The idea was to bring up this notion that this is a Hindu country. And Vande Mataram was not celebrated just as a great song. It is being celebrated as an assertion of a certain identity. And that's what was being done. And I must tell you that most of the people who argued in Parliament also argued with facts all getting it wrong. That's a different thing altogether. But yeah, we still have far more important things to be discussed than that. I agree, but possibly. But I don't think it is as simple as that. I disagree. I think these discussions are placed there not for distraction. It's for actually putting in people's mind a certain way of thinking. It is not just to make you forget unemployment. It is constantly asserting a certain majoritarian notion of the country. You do it, please don't remember, why are these symbols important? Because the emotional effect of the symbols is far more than what anybody can tell you. You will hum the tune every day. And I believe the long term, the idea is for people to make people forget Janagana Mana and everything that it means. That I believe is the long term agenda. At some point of time, 20 years from now, people may not remember Janagana Mana. When I say remember, I don't mean remember only the song. I mean remember the idea of Janagana Mana. Remember the ethos of Janagana Mana, which means the ethos of this country. So that, though none of these acts are benign acts of distraction, these are acts to put forth a certain agenda, a certain way of imagining this country, which is why it is up to us to decide whether that's our imagination, whether we want to be in constant conflict, whether we want to tell some citizens that you're lesser than me, whether you want to be that kind of a country, or do you want to be a country that says no? We have to make that choice. So also, it's important that we realize that our act as citizens don't stop only and start and stop on that day we put a vote. It is 365 days of work as a citizen. What are we, each of us, doing as citizens? I think that's the question we should ask ourselves.
That there can be more national anthems, like in Gujarat, Karnataka.
No, I said the same anthem in different languages.
Different languages, and many flags also.
There
National
was.
flags. There was, or
There already is. Karnataka has its own flag, by the way.
no, national flag is.
No, I didn't say that there is. I said there was.
Okay. I thought maybe.
No, I said there was, but it's states have flags, and that's also assertion of identity. It's an important contestation. States have symbols. You have a symbol here. Your
Yes.
state has a symbol.
No, symbol is different from flag.
I don't think so. I think both are assertions.
Symbol is just like one logo. Flag is the one which we hoist for some occasions. That's what I basically
So
understand.
you can have state occasions to hoist the state flag. You can have a national occasion to hoist the national flag. Say the day your state is formed, Telangana.
Are
If-
we doing that?
I'm saying you can. Nothing stops you from doing it. Nothing stops from Telangana having a Telangana flag that is hoisted on the day that Telangana became a state. Nothing stops you.
Is any state doing that? In
I mean,
India?
Karnataka has a Karnataka flag.
Is it? Are they hoisting that?
During Karnataka Day, you please go and see anywhere in Bangalore, anywhere in Karnataka. The color is everywhere hoisted.
Color, only color.
No,
but
it's a
not
flag. It's a flag.
Flag. Okay.
So you can. There's nothing illegal about it. Don't worry.
In the whole India, only Karnataka state
No, there are a
is
few
doing
other
that.
states also.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, like you said, like Gandhi told while coming back to India, he told like everyone should have Swaraj in their heart, and when that happens, like it doesn't matter whether British are there or not. So, but at that time, India was going through many things. Like they were like really poor, downtrodden, and everything. They didn't have Swaraj in their heart, but they wanted like all they wanted like proper meal and clothes on their body. So how can the person who doesn't have anything can think about Swaraj in their hearts? And the leaders who were there, like they need to give some symbol or anything. Like they wanted like British to be out. So doesn't it contradict Gandhi's ideology of Swaraj in heart than British going out?
Okay, let me ask this question. Does a person who does not have food or is poor sing a song? Do they sing songs? Do poor people sing songs? Yes or no? Why? What is the point of singing a song when I have no food on my plate? Does a poor person paint? Yeah, you've seen huts with paintings. Just think about it. Don't answer me. Just don't have to. We don't have to respond to each other immediately. Just think about it. Why? That act of singing a song is an act of freedom. It's an act, when you sing a song, there is a feeling of Swaraj in that moment. So to think that Swaraj is only possible for a person who is in some way comfortable, I think in a way undermines that feeling in everybody, every individual, whether they have food or clothing. I think we can't make that mistake. Who are the people most of the times protesting on the street? It's not the middle class, no? It is poor people, no? Why? Not only for food. For rights also they are protesting. They are the ones who are asking for freedom. So the idea of being free, I believe, is a fundamental human feeling that cannot be taken away from any individual. Which is why you create societal structures or political structures to either make them forget it or constantly keep it under suppression. So even a person who doesn't have food wants to be able to laugh. Haven't you seen a person who is struggling still laugh? You and me looking and saying, oh my God, they are laughing. Our emotion response, leave it. That person. So I think that Swaraj is something slightly more profound than comforts of life. And I think that in fact you and I should learn about Swaraj from people who have nothing. Because how is that they're able to find it despite they have nothing? We have everything, we still don't find Swaraj in our hearts. So maybe we are the problem. They know Swaraj before we do. I think we should be learning from them. And I think that's why Gandhi is right. I'll come back to you.
Sir, how should the citizens of India should interpret the idea we, the
We the people.
We the people.
I think it was interpreted like Janaganamana. That's why I use Janaganamana as we the people. I think what is important about the we is this, the dignity. I'm going to take we the people, take dignity of the individual. I'm going to take these two things together here. So this entire play of individual and the collective is a very important part of our preamble. Right? So the individual, dignity of every individual is how you can be a collective. Let me try and clarify that. Unless every individual finds dignity, which means beyond caste, beyond genders, beyond religion, breaking all this. If every individual finds dignity, then living as a fraternity is automatically something that is simple. Right? So our job is to find a way where not only we live with dignity, but every individual, especially those who are marginalized, can find dignity in their lives. And I think the further and further we achieve that, we the people will make more sense to us. Until then, we the people only be we the few people. It should not be we the few people. It should be we the people.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Many of us have forgotten the contribution of Subramaniam Bharati. I'm talking about the poem called Engal Nada, where a very beautiful poem, and also the contribution of Bhartiyar. I remember from my childhood days, Odi Villai Adu Papa, and he also contributed for the Subhashitani, very intellectual things which we should inculcate in our life. Now the question is, who is related to the concept of idea of India? I am confused, whether it is Gandhi or Rabindranath Tagore. And another second small question is, the concept of Bharat Mata has originated from, at a later stage, from Mother Queen of England. This many people don't know. We don't actually had any concept like Bharat Mata. It has evolved. So there were too many subjects which might be there in your mind, but you have selected 5, and we were happily listening because it's too many.
So Bharat Mata is in the book. If you read the book, Bharat Mata is there in the book. So Bharat Mata, actually the first time, there are many historians, please know, historians have spoken about it. It was actually a satirical, I think, essay when first the idea of Bharat Mata comes into being in the late 19th century. But the pictorial representation was Abhindranath Tagore's Bharat Mata, which is a beautiful painting, which is around 1905 during the partition of Bengal. But that is not the Bharat Mata that you see and I see today. We see the tiger, we see the goddess, right? That's not Abhindranath's Bharat Mata. That Bharat Mata is very different. Bharat Mata seems to be, is like a renunciate, like a monk. She seems to be giving in a different manner. There is no protection of territory. Bharat Mata seems territorial, right? So even Bharat Mata as an idea has changed. But interestingly, there is in Tamil cinema, I'm sure in Telugu cinema you have an equivalent term. We have this term called Amma sentiment. I don't know whether you use the same term. So all popular movies, I have a reason why I'm bringing that up, have to have one scene or two scenes where there is Amma sentiment. Where either the hero is the mother is crying for the son, and she's at a temple singing a song, save my son, the son is almost going to die, or while the son is dying in some thing, the mother feels it at home. All these cliches. The British understood our Amma sentiment very well. Because if you actually see, after the declaration that the British government will rule over us, rather the Queen herself will be our monarch, there's a specific mention about how the Orientals have this affiliation towards the idea of the mother, and how the Queen perfectly symbolizes this idea of the mother. They somehow understood that very well. Credit to them. They said that she represents this idea of the mother. So there is something about our culture and our attachment to this notion of mother and, one embryotic relationship that is somehow part of our Bharat Mata search that has happened. And British repeatedly talk about that, right? And by the way, you may not know that the British at one time also wanted to make God Save the Gracious King Indian anthem. And they were ready to add extra verses for India especially to make that the anthem. So where they wanted again the mother to be celebrated. So this mother problem that we have, I will leave it at that.
Before the next question, I want to share a piece of Manthan history. Me and Ajay debated, I think at least for a month, to decide whether we should read the preamble or whether we should have Janaganamana at the beginning of the thing. I voted for Janaganamana and Ajay voted for preamble for only one reason. Ajay felt that we have many bad singers and reading is a safer option because he was a perfectionist. I said, however bad the singing is, it's still our national anthem. Being a true Democrat, he agreed. And we survived like that for 20 years now.
With a lot of interest, and I didn't put it down till I finished it over a few days.
Thank you very much.
In fact, I told Chaitanya here, who's the granddaughter of Pingali Venkaya, that she should pick up the book and read, and she may have some inputs that she can give in a private or in a conversation here. But the book came alive to me today when you spoke, because all that you spoke, all your answers are there in the book. You know, every single incident that you talked about Amma feeling or about whatever it is there in your book if one reads it very carefully. And I must say that being trained to read books very carefully, having been a teacher for a long time. I just have one couple of questions. I know we are getting very late, so I'll make it very brief. I just wanted to share my happiness with you.
Thank you.
But one of the questions is you talked about the ragas and so on, okay? For me, and there are many people like me who enjoy music, but we don't know the names of any ragas, okay? Whether it is Malhar or it is anything else, it doesn't matter. But what matters is the musicality, okay? So when I hear somebody sing, I go to concerts. I've been going to Carnatic music concerts from my childhood, which is a normal thing for a upper caste Brahmin to be going to in India, and I listen to it. But I think this thing of saying that obviously your input comes from your own position of being a trained musician. But I would think that when you weigh words, whether one writes poetry, which I am more familiar with, and these are poems which are translated into rhythmic, melodious sounds. So what need is it there to know whether it was a Malhar or it could have been a Malhar or what it could not have been?
May I answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll stop there because
So there are two parts. I'll answer this. I would say you don't need to know the name of the raga at all. But if you think that a shift in the two ragas are not affecting you in some manner, you're mistaken. That's the mistake in your argument, in my opinion. Because the change in the melody is a change in an emotive landscape. You may not recognize A as having a name that is one, B as a name, but you're responding to two different identities emotionally. So it matters whether it is Malhar or not Malhar. Now, one second, let me finish. The names may not matter, but the change matters. I am telling you the name because I know the name. And I think it's also interesting to know it. Like at my concert, many times, people ask me to announce the name of the raga, and I always say I get tired of it. And I make the argument saying, just because if you didn't know the raga, knowing the name is not going to change your experience of it. No way. How is it going to? But the raga itself is making an impact on you whether you know the name or not. These two are two truths that coexist. You don't have to deny one for the other. And that's all I would say. Yes. But I still think investigating why it's Malhar is an important investigation. Why did Bankim want Malhar? Because he had it in his book. He was interested in Malhar. I think that's an important historical investigation that we should not lose from. That's also important. I mean, I will not disregard that piece of information because somebody does not understand Malhar. No, I will not. I will still think that's an important piece of investigation as a researcher. It's important for me to look at it. Yeah.
With the permission of Mr. Vikram, he's more of a singer to me than an author. I read both the books of yours, Sebastian and Sons, and as well as this book. But your identity is, final identity is a singer.
I think I should be the person deciding my identity, isn't it? Not Vikram or not you. Yeah, so it'd be nice if you say you thought of me in a certain manner. Thank you.
Right. Now, the folk songs are the original sources of singing.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The folk songs, F-O-L-K, folk songs.
Folk songs.
They are the original format of, origin of singing. They are the chirping of a bird, or an elephant, or a lion, or a peacock. Now your Sarigama, Padanisa, Padani came out of those animals and birds. Now the folk song, which is the original format, never knew about what is Sa, what is Re. It is the Pandits who have discovered the way of making it a
I have about 15 things to respond to every statement you've made today, but I shall not, because I have a lot of things to say about it, but I'll let it pass.
Okay, okay. I just wanted to say the property stolen by the natives, by the Pandits.
I think history is far more messier and complex and interesting and magnificent than as simple as that. Have you ever heard a peacock make its noise? Do you think it can be any note? I don't think so, but that's a different thing altogether. But I think some of them, let me put it this way. The intellectualization of something cannot disregard that certain things existed before. At the same time, metaphors sometimes cannot be taken literally. They have to be taken as descriptive ways of understanding music and sound and what is around. Now, this question of the folk, even words like the folk and the classical need to be debated very carefully for us. To me, those words don't make musical sense at all. They only make sociological sense. So there are many layers to what you have said, for which I'll have to come another day and speak for 2.5 hours.